I have with me Timothy Gordon. He is the author of Rules for Retrogrades and former chairman of theology at Grace Garches Memorial in California. And we talked about this before, earlier this week, or maybe even last week. He disagreed. He spoke up, and he lost his job for it. That's evil. Timothy, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, awesome.
And happy White History Month, man.
Most happy White History Month to you and all your staff. And that song that I just heard was a chart topper.
I know. It's an amazing song. It's done by one of the members of my organization, and he is a major entertainer. He's really performed very well. I thank you for that, man. I appreciate that.
It's beautiful.
And so you were fired from your job as chairman of theology. And tell us exactly what happened, and were you surprised that you were fired?
Yeah, two questions in there. I'll answer the first one first, second one second. I have a large social media footprint as a cultural conservative Catholic commentator. And I've had it for a couple years as theology department chairman of the school, Garces. We're in a kind of conservative area of California, and there's a conservative electorate for the school to draw its parents and students from. So they always kind of liked, for the faithful Catholics and the political conservatives in town, they liked having me on staff because I was a well-known personality. They still had liberals on staff, all the problems of typical Catholic diocesan kind of modernism. They had that too, so they're keeping two balls up in the air. That's the context to all this. It's been summer break, obviously, so it's a lower scrutiny on teachers than anyway, which is why it's weird that I got fired. But in late May, with all of the murder and arson and mayhem that was going on our television screens every night, I was making a series of tweets, and I made a show with a Black MAGA, Henry Davis, and it was around that time. I was fired on June the 3rd, right? So I had a number of tweets about Black Lives Matter. The one that I think actually got me was me venturing out there onto the branch to say BLM is is a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
BLM is a terrorist organization, which is a matter of pure historical fact.
That is true.
It's true. I mean, the FBI designated them thus in 2017, and now Giuliani's saying it, Trump's saying it. I'm glad that I was kind of at the beginning here, at least in 2020. But so it was June 3rd, a petition arose against me, 146 names. You have to understand, I'm very popular at the school, even though I'm conservative, and people aren't used to that. 146 names. I taught, I think, well under half of them ever. So the other ones were just piling on. Right. There were students who knew about me in the area. Some of them didn't even go to Garces. Many of them were just the liberal dissenting Catholics who always rolled their eyes at the church's teaching on abortion, contraception, gay marriage. Right. And they did so in class. Some of them, it was ex-discipline problems, literally trying to get back at me, petty stuff. So within 4 hours, I'd say, Jesse, by that evening, I received an email while I was interviewing Henry Davis, no less. Ironically, you can see if you go look at me, Timothy Gordon, on YouTube, the video where I'm interviewing Henry Davis, you see my wife come in and you see she gives me the cutthroat sign, 3 to 4 hours later. And I was like shocked, but I just went on with the interview because I knew I'd be okay. The second part of the question is, this is very surprising, because the school had prayed for my eldest daughter. I got 6 kids. Abigail is the eldest, who was born in Italy with brain problems. And she'd had her 5th and largest brain surgery not 2 months before they fired me. And the school had been praying and sending out email type updates and things like that, pretending to be familial type supportive. So they let me go, knowing full well that after July, Abigail, who had just had hemispherectomy of the left side of her brain, would no longer have that insurance. So it's a really remarkable thing. A great petition went up, on timothyjgordon.com, where people donated, and it's been really lovely. Conservatives and Catholics around the country, but didn't get much of that love locally.
Yeah. What are they afraid of? Why would they fire you? You were not wrong. Why did they fire you? What are they afraid of?
I think, like I've heard you talk about on your show, it doesn't take much cunning in brainwashed 2020 America to fool a lot of the people in the middle. I mean, BLM has something like 70% of the support of common Americans, pretty much at the titular level, just because of the title. If you ever want to be a terrorist in America, call your organization something like "Don't Kill Kittens," because people feel they don't like to disagree with that. I don't want to be seen as I kill kittens. BLM, as you know, is completely corrupt. Yeah. It's completely racist itself, and a genuinely Marxist terrorist organization. They don't care, though. People have little use for facts, don't they, today, Jesse?
Absolutely. I'm blown away that Black Lives Matter was founded by a bunch of fat black radical lesbians worse than the KKK, and they have white people bowing down to them, people burning down businesses and buildings and killing other people and tearing down behind lesbians. Where is God?
Nope. Nowhere to be found in terms of the personnel or the policies of Black Lives Matter. It's really important to note that, it's not just random people who are cowardly. They have a cowardly streak that are bowing down to them and kneeling to them in the streets. It's at the level of corporate America. This has been a policy that has been greenlighted, and these corporate executives, they all follow the same playbook. So when you turn on your TV, people out there, and you see that everyone else is on COVID-19 lockdown, what's going on? These guys are out there doing unlawful stuff in the streets that they shouldn't be allowed to do without a lockdown happening. Why do they get to step between the raindrops? It's because the corporate and the academy collusion has produced a kind of bromide where these people are literally allowed to do it. They're a higher class, and all of the corporations in America and all of the companies support what they're doing. And so they literally are, it's not as if they're playing by a different rule book. They're playing with no rule book. They're not bound at all.
Right.
It's frightening for cowards, I'd imagine, but I don't know.
Amazing. When I read that you had 6 children and you're white, I'm like, right on, making white babies. We need white babies, so keep it up.
That's my job, man. That's my vocation from God. Making little babies who happen to be white. It's an accidental. We're brothers from other mothers, but making babi's is my vocation if I don't become an ordained priest. So
that's right. How's your wife handling this? And I didn't know about your daughter, but knowing about that and this is happening, how is she dealing with it?
Excellently. She's uncommonly tough. A lot of guys say that. Most of them are just saying it because of the vile feminism that's in the air. So they say things that have become a hackneyed cliche. My wife had a really tough childhood, and she is uncommonly tough, sui generis. We're moving out of state to Mississippi, actually, getting out of California, because this was the last straw. Luckily, my media footprint with rules for retrogrades, actually, here's what the book looks like. It's a playbook for defeating the radical left.
Amazing.
That with my brother, and I've been using it.
Right on.
In full honesty, so it's a big enough footprint that we can looks like we're going to be able to just transition to doing what I've been doing for the last several years, full time, and then operate out of a better state than California, which would be Mississippi.
But Mississippi.
I will tell you this.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It got weird. It got wild locally in Bakersfield after this happened. Here's the local rag. They were really rough on me, even though this is probably the most conservative city in California. It was rough, and that was weird for my wife, even though she's tough, because they were so they were really dragging me in the local media. I have friends in the national media that have been, lionizing me, but local media has been weird, and it's a pretty big town, Bakersfield. So it's been odd. That was weird for my wife and weird for my family.
Well, I know you're concerned for your life and your family lives. Are you afraid?
No. I mean, I don't know, man. There's no time for fear. Like Caesar said, right? A coward dies 1,000 deaths.
Yeah.
I prefer to just die one. There's not. Also, we live on a nice side of the town, and it's just been more stuff like we go for walks every day as part of Abby's rehabilitation. We're actually wheeling her in her wheelchair, but whole family, since Abby got out of the hospital 2 months ago, we've been doing 5-mile walks. So we'll see neighbors, that we haven't seen in quite a while on opposite ends of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think it was about a week after all this happened. I got fired on June 3rd, right? Like a week later, we started hitting some neighbors on parts of the neighborhood we hadn't seen for a few months, and we got the kind of cold shoulder snub from one of them was a known conservative to me.
Wow.
So really strange to have the media lies hitting home. Our next door neighbor, we were like, hey, we don't know if there's going to be there is BLM in town, so we're getting out of town, but will you just keep an eye on the house? And he kind of cut me off. He was like, oh, I was on all 3 local news stations, the newspaper and a radio station. I did one interview, and that guy was being smarmy. So even though it's a conservative town, it's been the worst. A prophet ain't recognized in his hometown.
Well, the fortunate thing about this, at least now you know who your friends are not. You know your friends.
Right. Yeah. One of our rules for retrogrades is never trust a man who's afraid to have enemies.
Yes.
And knowing who your friends are not is the first step in knowing who your friends really are.
Yeah. Exactly. I wanted to say, down in Mississippi, they're kind of caving too. We did a story where they're changing the flag and all that crap as though that's gonna make things better. So I'm not sure Mississippi is a good place to be going right now.
Well, where can you? I mean, you gotta. That was all going on when we went down there to pick a domicile last week. That was big in the paper every day. I'd wake up at our hotel. We were in an RV too to get out there. Wake up, go in and get breakfast at the hotel, and then check on the flag thing. Because I think they got a beautiful flag. I don't know. I don't know why anyone there would want to change it, and it was disappointing. Because I thought Mississippians would be like, what are you talking about?
Me too. I was surprised to hear that about Mississippi.
I was disappointed. But, hey, man, you got to live somewhere. I'm open to suggestions. Where else can you live? If not Mississippi, I don't know, Alabama. Where can you go where people are half sane?
Well, the one thing and I thought about this the other day, and I talked about it on the show, is that this evil is everywhere. And that's why you must have faith in God. And at some point, you got to just stand up for good, because these evil would go and destroy. It would destroy you within if you don't deal with it and overcome it, and it would destroy you without. And these people are evil, and they're spread around the country. And really, there's nowhere to go. You just got to stand and fight evil with good.
Well, evil, what its primary job is, particularly after the French Revolution failed in 1789, Jesse, the Masons and the kind of Marxists got together and they said, what we need to do is to infiltrate the institutions of Western civilization.
Yeah.
And their big goal was the Roman Catholic Church, but all of the institutions that were formerly associated with being bulwarks of Western civilization now are compromised, including the personnel, not the doctrine, that's never touchable, the personnel of the Roman Catholic Church, which I kind of represent. And so, what they've done is they've infiltrated and they've softened the ground for Marxist ideas, Masonic ideas to be kind of trickled down from the top. And now they're not being pitched the way they were being pitched at the French Revolution.
Yeah.
We oppose you. That's an attack on Christendom from without. This is an attack on Christendom from within. So infiltration is the key step.
Yeah. Are you afraid? I mean, not afraid, but are you surprised how weak men are today? Because men are running faster than the women.
They are, man. I mean, 99 out of 100 men are betas, and particularly
beta male.
I'm talking about Christian conservative men. I'm talking about Christian conservative men. They were portrayed as Ned Flanders from The Simpsons for so long that they began believing it.
Yeah.
They were listening to the mischaracterizations of the left as to what Christian humility requires. They didn't remember we were fighting the Crusades against the Mohammedans, right? And that all of these, except the Fourth Crusade, were holy wars because they made mistakes against the Jews there. But all Crusades are holy wars, and humility was not breached in the Crusades just by showing military strength. Humility was exercised therein. And so these guys, Christians and conservatives, are the ultimate betas. And there's nothing wrong. What really, if you want to make me laugh, have these guys like on a lot of the more conservative leaning networks like laugh at the left. What are you laughing about, man? Look at the scoreboard, dude.
Yeah.
The scoreboard shows you're getting whooped.
Yeah.
And the only thing wrong with the left is the position they stand for. The way they play, and they play hard, and they're relentless, and they're ceaseless in their attack, is almost admirable. The right, there's everything wrong with us on the right, Christians and conservatives. We stand by, and then we laugh as we're getting 50 pieced.
So you criticize conservatives, and you're right for their weakness, saying that they need to be more on the offense. How, for those that don't know how to be on the offense, what does that mean? What action do you take? What do you suggest?
Well, that's really, I mean, I'm not just trying to just shamelessly plug this book, but rule number one, it's 40 rules for retrogrades, and they're specific stuff, and they're helpful. Number one is always be on offense. Chess grandmasters know it. Military generals know it. Football coaches know it. They know that their defensive coordinator, who says, I'm the most important coach on this team, is not really. You need offense to win.
Yeah.
Cowardly conservatives love the Greg Popovich line that defense wins championships. It actually doesn't. It's a cliche that ultimately is not true. If you have the greatest defense in the world, the best you're guaranteed is a tie. And I mean, think of boxers. You can't throw a strong punch backing up from your back foot.
Right.
Even if you're covering up, you got to counter punch with hooks and choppy punches where you can generate power from a formally defensive position. Everyone knows it except the Christian conservative, that you must be on offense to win. You can't just so if somebody asks you in a debate like, why do you hate women? Because I see you're anti-abortion. You say, wait, I'm not going to answer that. Why do you hate women? Why do you hate blacks?
Yeah.
Why do you want to kill little black babies? And why do you not want to hold women accountable for having abortions? It's bad for the soul to not hold people accountable.
That's right.
Murder. So that's how you go on the offense. You speak how I speak. It's rule for retrograde number one. You don't win championships with defense. It's nonsense. Cowards hold it up because it justifies and it back justifies their ability to continue to be cowards and still look semi-dignified.
Amazing. In your book, Rules for Retrograde, you describe being one of God's spies. What do you mean by that? I love that, and it sounds good, but what do you exactly mean? What do you mean by that?
It's a Shakespearean term, and it just means that, look, we Christians tried, particularly over the course of the 20th century, we tried the Ned Flanders thing, right? I'm not saying you never break the Decalogue, right? Because that's grave matter, the 10 Commandments. You always follow that. But aside from that, you want to do like a half cover thing, not deep cover, where you start, looking and sounding like an actual criminal like Lawrence Fishburne in the movie called Deep Cover. But half cover where you got to look tough, you got to lift weights. There's nothing wrong with talking tough. And there's nothing wrong with when you're dealing with a mostly secular audience that's aggressive to you. If you're going to evangelize them, you can use the natural law as well as the supernatural law. And the best natural law principle for being winsome, for converting people, is first off just showing them you're good at what you do. You got to be good at a lot of different things.
Right.
And you can't just be the joke Christian It's like, well, I'm on a mission trip, or I want to convert you, like, even as you're laughing at me. It's like, no, first you got to win the debate.
Yeah.
First you got to look like the tougher guy. Then people will want to follow you.
Very, very true, man. I totally agree to that. When I was growing up, Christianity was very strong. It was different then than it is today. I never imagined for a second while growing up, and I grew up in Alabama on a plantation and all that, under the Jim Crow laws, but it was strong. And I never imagined that it would be so watered down and so weak and just about reading the Bible, thumping. And do you know exactly what happened to cause it to become so weak?
Yeah, well, I actually do. This is a big part of my platform is there was a very specific effort in the beginning of the 1800s to, there's actually a document called the Alta Vendita. It was an intercepted document from the P2, a high-ranking Italian Masonic lodge, that the popes of the middle 20th century, back when the popes were chads, back when they were awesome, not communists, that they intercepted. Notably, Leo the 13th is my favorite. That guy is, I can't believe he's not a saint, but they were literally saying every Christian needs to read this intercepted document called the Alta Vendita. It is the Masons and the worldwide leftists, the globalists, saying what they want to do in the next century. That next century would be the 20th century, of course. They want to soften the ground by getting into the church and to water down the ideas, and basically water the ideas so far down that they were pitching Marxism and Freemasonry without even saying this is Marxism and Freemasonry. And it worked so well. I mean, look at the pontificate of Francis. Yeah. If you want to look no further, this is the culmination of that. Christianity now teaches not the true Catholic social teachings. I mean, they're still there. They're unmolested. But what are the ones that are spoken of from the pulpit? Immigration, eco nonsense, green nonsense, environment. And, it's been very well documented in the Catholic Church that they're like, we got to get away from the issues of the loins, the people, being obsessed with that. It's like, well, that's why most people end up going to hell.
Yeah.
Because of the issues of the loins.
Yeah. Who
cares about immigration or the environment? That's paganism.
That's amazing. Timothy, when I first heard what had happened to you, I'm like, how can this happen? This is America. This should not be happening. But after speaking to you now, I feel satisfied. I really am grateful to see how well and in the right way you're dealing with all this. And your family is blessed to have a husband and a father who is dealing with this stuff without fear and without anger. It's amazing, man.
Thank you, brother. I mean, there's no room for fear, number one. Right. So we were a little shocked on June 3rd, but I knew that, behold the fowls of the air, remember, in Matthew's gospel, where it's like, look, the birds aren't worried about their food storage or their next couple weeks. And because people have been so generous, going to timothyjgordon.com and clicking donate, which was and is necessary, frankly.
Yes.
And helpful.
Absolutely.
Before we had that, I knew there would be something that God would use to take care of us, and he has. So having faithfulness will always pay dividends.
Absolutely.
And we got a fight ahead of us, man. We got to prepare for a real fight, and that's what you're doing on your channel, is getting people ready. White History Month and great rhetoric like that is what we need now. A lot of it's Rule 4: laughter is war. And it's really, really important, Risus Bellum Est, to understand this is gallows humor. This is the humor that people have in the trenches, because it saves lives when you're in amidst a warfare and serious battle. You got to laugh, and you got to make jokes about the opponent. I really appreciate you, though.
Thank you. When you first heard of White History, this is our third year, what was your first impression?
Well, I mean, my first impression was I thought it was hilarious, but it's ridiculous that you laugh at that. Everyone else has got one.
Right. That's right.
But what people don't understand now, because they're historical illiterates, is the Christians who were oppressed by Nero in the 1st century AD. The Jews who were oppressed by Hitler in the early 30s in Germany, the aggressor never, ever, ever casts the weak party that they're about to oppress as the weak party. The oppressor always, even going back to Nero, says, look how powerful these Christians are becoming. Hitler, with the Jews, he didn't say, oh, the little Jews, the way we think about them in America, blacks, Catholics, Jews. He was like, the Jews are the powerful banking class. They're the ones after Weimar Republic that are, you know, taking all our jobs. They're the most powerful ones. We need to strike back at them. Does this sound familiar amid White History Month?
Yeah.
You know, the straight white male, he's mean.
Yeah.
You justify and stir up hatred and invidious rancor against the class that you're claiming is the aggressor when really they're the victims. It's scary watching what's happening to the straight white male in America. It really is. It's
amazing, Timothy. So tell the people how to get rules for retrogrades and your site, whatever information you want to give out.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so this book was selling really well last week and the week before. It's Rules for Retrogrades. You can go to Amazon.com and get Rules for Retrogrades. I think it's on sale right now, extra sale. Also, Timothy J. Gordon, GORDON.com is where people have been incredibly generous. TimothyJGordon.com. Just click donate. I also give classes. Because I'm a teacher at heart, I moved my classes, an Aristotle's ethics class in fall and a church history class in fall, to an online model. You click enroll, donate or enroll. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm fighting in the trenches for everyone out there. And I'm not afraid, and I'm glad to lead from the front.
And God is with you, man, and your family. I'm glad to see that this day. So I really wish you well. And if we could be of any help to you, let us know. We'll be happy to do it. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show post. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.